The natural liberty of man is to be free from any superior power on earth, and not to be under the will or legislative authority of man, but only to have the law of nature for his rule. Samuel Adams. Good evening, everyone. It's been a while. Had some issues setting up, and man, darn this thing, Facebook. Now that if I stream or restream, actually, they'll have me put in a captcha. So sometimes I don't catch it, and I don't catch the captcha. Do you get it? And I don't think some of my streams went. That's okay. I just try to restream to as many different places as possible, but that doesn't happen at every instance. Like for now, Vimm.tv, I'm not streaming anything. I noticed that they're not really attached to Steam it that much. So anyone who goes to Steam it and clicks on the live stream link, you can't really watch the live stream anyway. So I'll have to figure out uploading or re-uploading it or something. DTube sucks right now. I can't even get a stream key from DTube. Okay, so aside from that, back's been pretty sore. Today I took care of my kid. He didn't have daycare. He was sick. He had starting on Thursday, well, Friday we got the meds. I took him to a doctor. He got ear infections in both ear and pink eye. So that was that. Hey Eric, how you doing? So I'm still not fully out of the cough, and you'll probably hear me coughing a little bit, going on these coughing fits. I'm trying not to make it too long tonight. Just had some things I like to say, and we'll go ahead and start with that. All right. See, my cough is still there. All right. Oh, no, not that one. Work solo. There we go. And did I get everything set up? Okay. So, one of the things that I do want to share is, and I'm not bringing up the context yet. All right, here we go. All right. So, during the live stream, the Unity 4J, the online visual 5.0, this last Saturday, I said something in chat and someone probably misconstrued it as, hey, don't talk politics. And it's like, I don't talk politics. I talk actions. If Trump does something that promotes war or denies freedom, I'm going to speak up about it. I'm apolitical. That means non-political. I'm pretty much an independent, non-affiliated. That's me now. Was I ever elsewhere? No, I've always kind of been that way, but now I just don't participate. And so for you Trump people, or people who are still political and think talking about anyone that's in office or in politics, talking about them is being political, that's not true. I just talk about their actions. I don't care what they say. They can say where they want, whether it's true or not, whether they're lying. That remains to be seen. As we pretty much know, they are very much a bunch of liars. So here's Trump. So what do we get with Trump? Oh, and I forgot another one. I'm gonna add it here. All right. So one, what has Trump done that's pretty damn shitty? And I'm not being political here. I'm talking about freedom, Constitution. Well, a lot of people, and this is CNN here. Trump's one piece of gun-related legislation undid restrictions aimed at mental illness, by Z. Brian Wolf, February 15, 2018. All right, this is CNN applauding Trump. And you know what? Who didn't really enact any legislation for gun control, even though the right was crying about it for 8 years and being afraid. Well, Obama didn't pass any legislation for gun control, but who did? Donald Trump. A little less than a year ago, on February 27th, 28th, 2017, he signed a measure nixing a regulation aimed at keeping guns out of the hands of some severely mental ill people. It's critical to note that it's not all clear it would have applied to the shooters in Florida nor Las Vegas, and there's no reason to believe it would have stopped the massacre. So it probably wouldn't have changed the damn thing. But you know what? You love Trump, but you know, it's his, what is it, 4D chess, 5D chess, 6D chess, however many dimensions you think Trump can play. Well, he's playing you, fool. All right. You want to see this legislation? Excuse me. Here it is. So, disapproval of this, and you can see it. It's actually linked here. Read the full bill text here, and that's what it's linking to. So I'm not showing you just some out of nowhere thing. And what it's referencing is the NICS Improvement Amendments Act of 2007. See NIS Improvement Act of 2007. All you have to do is search for it, and you're probably blind to it. You're going, and you can read it all here. So what else did Trump do? Well, here's I'm sure you probably like reading CNBC. You're going, oh, so he approved a $717 billion Defense Authorization Act. It doesn't say Israel anywhere on it. So what are you talking about? Oh, come on. Search. Yeah. You think it would be important? Look, at the bottom left, Israel. I'm trying to search for it. Nothing on this article. But you could go ahead and just Google it. But here we go. Straight from the horse's mouth. IsraelNationalNews.com. You guys on the right, you guys are still on a side being divided so you can fight everyone else but the rulers who control you. Trump signs defense bill aid to Israel. Trump signs into law defense spending bill which codifies memorandum of understanding with Israel. This is in August 14th, 2018 by Elad Benari. U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday signed into law a defense spending bill which codifies a 10-year memorandum of understanding with Israel negotiated during the Obama administration. The bill includes $500 million for the U.S.-Israel missile defense cooperation, up to $50 million for U.S.-Israel cooperation to detect enemy tunnels into Israel. The measure was approved by the Senate earlier this month before going to Trump for his signature. So, in December 2016, the U.S. Senate voted in favor of a defense policy bill which includes more than $600 million for missile defense cooperation with Israel. This aid is separate from the memorandum of understanding signed between, and this is slightly different. They have a memorandum of understanding that this is Trump, your boy Trump, signed between Israel and the U.S. in September of that year. Or maybe it wasn't Trump. Was that Obama? I can't remember. December 2016. That would be Trump, right? No, because he'd be in office. I'm sorry. But anyways, it's still happening. Which grants Israel $3.8 billion annually beginning in 2018 through 2028. After the memorandum of understanding was signed, Republican senators said they would seek to overturn part of it so that Israel can receive even more aid. They're going to overturn part of it so Israel can receive more aid. Here are your Republicans, you right asses. All right. And of course, here's Prime Minister of Israel saying defense agreement is unprecedented, and unprecedented in a bad way, but in a good way for him and Israel. He said, Prime Minister, and this is in 2016, September. Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed the Israeli people this morning ahead of the historic pact to be signed between America and Israel, in which Israel is set to receive $38 billion of military aid over the next 10 years. Skipping on, in his speech, then Netanyahu noted that this is the largest package of military aid that the U.S. has ever granted to another nation. That's all I have to say right there. That's all I have to say. And oh great, who appointed Ajit Pai as the FCC chair? Oh, was that Obama? No, that was Donald J. Trump. And who repealed net neutrality? Oh, right, Ajit Pai. The
federal government.
And this is CBS. So you guys are so happy about Donald J. Trump. And I don't know what he's doing for you, but all the things that you are against, he is for. Or maybe you are for war. Maybe you are for Israel. Maybe you are for being against net neutrality, being against freedom of the internet. Maybe you just don't like freedom. Makes me think. Anyways, that's enough about that. Like, yeah, most of y'all are politically minded. I am not. So when I talk about anyone in politics, it's not a political side that I'm taking. I'm taking a freedom side. I'm taking the natural law rights of every individual in this world side. No man has authority over me. All right. Interesting thing. I think it was yesterday, because maybe it was 2 days ago. I watch a lot of stuff. I mean, because here is Pockets of the Future. I think he's pretty Christian. I'm not really that type of Christian that he is. But he talks about the inverted cross in the Kavanaugh protest. It's that weird symbolism right there. And so I'm just kind of listening in, because you know what? I empty my cup. I listen to people. I listen to what they have to say, the information that they present. I don't care whether they are Christian, non-Christian, gay, not gay, women, female, alien, dark occultist, Satanist, whatever. I am going to listen to what they have to say, and I'm going to really decide for myself whether it has merit, or the information has merit, or what they're saying might be true, might be false, but whatever it is, I'm going to listen to it, because I would not know otherwise without listening to it. So my wife is watching me and also probably listening in, and she goes, "Do you really believe all the stuff that he says?" It's not about believing. It's like, what? I don't believe. When have I ever believed in something like a religion or whatever? Anytime. Just name it once. Same thing with the politics with Trump. Name one time where I'm like pro-Democrat, pro-Republican. I just really decide on who I thought at that time would do the best for ensuring that the country doesn't go to shit. I guess I've been wrong every time. I bet, yeah, that's politics for you. And so another thing, I think a lot of my friends from a long time ago, they're probably going, "Oh, don't get all snickered into all this new age crap, this Illuminati and all this other stuff, religion. It's you know, they just want you to get you snickered in." Yeah, it's like, when have I ever been in any type of religious society? I guess. I mean, I am a follower of Christ, but that's a little bit different than being Christian, at least in today's standards. So whenever people see me just kind of sharing stuff, listening to stuff, that's because I'm trying to learn. And your bias about me being biased by listening or watching certain content, you're just dumb. You really are. It's like, shut up. You shouldn't. I mean, you're someone who watches this. I'm not even going to listen to you. It's like, I watch everything. I listen to everything. I want to listen to all sides so I get the whole picture. So you're saying you only listen and think about one side. You don't even want to hear the other side, what they offer. What, you know, they might have some good stuff, logical stuff. They might say, hey, there's something wrong about this part. You're just going to shut yourself off to it. That's just stupid. And then there are people who are going to say, hey, shut up. You should shut up because you're wrong. And I'm like, show me I'm wrong. It's like, shut up, you're wrong. Stop talking. It's like, no, I'm not going to stop talking. I'm going to keep talking. And who are you to tell me to shut up? I'm not going to shut up for you. I'm going to shut up for people I care about. The only time I'll shut up for people is when I care about them. It's like, hey, I might be hurting their feelings. Hey, I'll give up a little of my freedom to appease them. But hell, it ain't gonna be for you, nobody. It's you, someone who wants to create some type of violence against me. No, people I care about, people who I trust, and I know they won't be telling me to shut up because they understand where the point that I stand on. They understand why I stand for the things I do. So there you go. Hey, you don't want to listen to me? Turn me off. You don't want to listen to what I have to say? You don't want to see all the notifications of what I have? Unfriend me. Unsubscribe. Whatever. You have that option. You have that freedom. You're not forced to watch or read or listen to anything that I say or state or write. Anyways, that's that. Let's go on to the actual topic. And it's been, what, 23 minutes? I'm sorry about that. Founding fathers and slavery. Again, another mindset of people going, oh, founding fathers, you're talking about all this about freedom and natural rights and natural law. Well, did you know that the founding fathers owned slaves? Not all of them. And you don't understand the full context. And here, all right, here's Britannica.com. You may not even trust Britannica.com. I don't know which side of the aisle you are in the truth movement or not. I don't know. I don't care right now. Basically, this one's just stating, okay, these are slaveholders among prominent founding fathers. You got some well-known ones like Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Washington. You got some non-slaveholders like John Adams, Samuel Allen Adams, Oliver Ellsworth, Alexander Hamilton, Robert Treat Paine, Thomas Paine, Roger Sherman, but that's just not it all. Okay, and I'm gonna have to read this whole thing for you. All right, in his initial draft of the Declaration of Independence. And before I go further, let me just say this is written by Anthony Lecarino. Gives no date. Encyclopedia Britannica. In his initial draft of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson condemned the injustice of the slave trade and by implication slavery, but he also blamed the presence of enslaved Africans in North America on avaricious British colonial policies. Jefferson thus acknowledged that slavery violated the natural rights of the enslaved, while at the same time he absolved Americans of any responsibility for owning slaves themselves. The Continental Congress apparently rejected the tortured logic of this passage by deleting it from the final document, but this decision also signaled the founders' commitment to subordinating the controversial issue of slavery to the larger goal of securing the unity and independence of the United States. Nevertheless, the founders, with the exception of those from South Carolina and Georgia, exhibited considerable aversion to slavery during the era of the Articles of Confederation. By prohibiting the importation of foreign slaves to individual states and lending their support to a proposal by Jefferson to ban slavery in the Northwest Territory. Such anti-slavery policies, however, only went so far. The prohibition of foreign slave imports by limiting the foreign supply conveniently served the interests of Virginia and Maryland slaveholders, who could then sell their own surplus slaves southward and westward at higher prices. Furthermore, the ban on slavery in the Northwest tacitly legitimated the expansion of slavery in the Southwest. Despite initial disagreements over slavery at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, the founders once again demonstrated their commitment to maintaining the unity of the new United States by resolving to diffuse sectional tensions over slavery. And again, this is a very tough time. It's like everybody now having iPads or smartphones and saying, okay, guys, we're eventually going to abolish people having iPad or smartphones because, you know, it's not working out for the country. And everybody's going, "What? We're not going to form this country if you're going to get rid of prevent us from owning." I don't know, it's just something stupid. It's that same concept. No, but you're not going to give up your smartphone. You're probably attached to it by the hip. It was the same thing with slavery back then, except slavery, you know, they probably made lots of money back then. Free workers. I mean, come on. Your smartphone, you're putting money into that thing. Okay, to this end, the founders drafted a series of constitutional clauses acknowledging deep-seated regional differences over slavery while requiring all sections of the new country to make compromises as well. They granted slaveholding states the right to count 3/5 of their slave population when it came to apportioning the number of a state's representatives to Congress, thereby enhancing Southern power in the House of Representatives. But they also used the same ratio to determine the federal tax contribution required of each state, thus increasing the direct federal tax burden of slaveholding states. Georgians and South Carolinians won a moratorium until 1808 on any congressional ban against the importation of slaves, but in the meantime, individual states remained free to prohibit slave imports if they so wished. Southerners also obtained the inclusion of a fugitive slave clause, see Fugitive Slave Acts, designed to encourage the return of runaway slaves who sought refuge in free states, but the Constitution left enforcement of this clause to the cooperation of the states, then to the coercion of Congress. And this is where we get into some other deeper stuff. Although the founders, consistent with their beliefs in limited government, opposed granting the new federal government significant authority over slavery, several individual Northern founders promoted anti-slavery causes at the state level. Benjamin Franklin in Pennsylvania, as well as John Jay and Alexander Hamilton, New York. Sorry, I'm having trouble talking. Served as officers in the respective state anti-slavery societies, and as you looked ahead, Benjamin Franklin and John Jay owned slaves. Okay, so they held positions, served as officers. The prestige they lent to these organizations ultimately contributed to the gradual abolition of slavery in each of the northern states. Although slavery was legal in every northern state at the beginning of the American Revolution, its economic impact was marginal. As a result, northern founders were freer to explore the libertarian dimensions of revolutionary ideology. The experience of Franklin was in many ways typical of the evolving attitudes of northern founders towards slavery. Although enmeshed in the slave system for much of his life, Franklin eventually came to believe that slavery ought to be abolished gradually and legally. Franklin himself had owned slaves, run ads in his Pennsylvania Gazette to secure the return of fugitive slaves, and defended the honor of slaveholding revolutionaries. By 1781, however, Franklin had divested himself of slaves, and shortly thereafter he became the president of the Pennsylvania Abolition Society. So he changed. Oh, he owns slaves though. He changed. He also went further than most of his contemporaries by signing a petition to the first federal Congress in 1790 for the abolition of slavery and the slave trade. Jay was the son of one, and here's another thing. People think, oh, you can't change. I am a living testament that you can change. I've changed in quite a lot of ways that I don't think a lot of people appreciate. But people who truly care about me stick with me. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to them. Heck, some might even like it. Who knows? All right. Jay was the son of the largest slaveholders in New York, and like Franklin, a slaveholder himself, though he claimed his ownership was a means to a beneficial end. I purchased slaves and manumit them at proper ages, and when their faithful services shall have afforded a reasonable retribution. He and Hamilton, whose youth in the West Indies embittered him against slavery, were among the founders of the New York Manumission Society in 1785, which established the New York African Free School in 1787. That year, during debate on the Constitution, one of the most vocal opponents of slavery among the founding fathers, Gouverneur Morris, called slavery a nefarious institution and a curse of heaven on the states where it prevailed. Unlike their northern counterparts, southern founders generally steered clear of organized anti-slavery activities, primarily to maintain their legitimacy among slaveholding constituents. Furthermore, while a few northern and southern founders manumitted a small number of slaves, no southern plantation-owning founder, except George Washington, he was a slave owner, freed a sizable body of enslaved laborers because his own slaves shared familial attachments with the dower slaves of his wife, Martha Custis Washington. He sought to convince her heirs to forego their inheritance rights in favor of a collective manumission so as to ensure that entire families, not just individual family members, might be freed. Washington failed to win the consent of the Custis heirs, but he nevertheless made sure through his last will and testament that his own slaves would enjoy the benefit of freedom. If you never heard of that shit before, now you've heard it. Washington's act of manumission implied that he could envision a biracial United States where both blacks and whites might live together as free people. Jefferson, however, explicitly rejected this vision. He acknowledged that slavery violated the natural rights of slaves and that conflicts over slavery might one day lead to the dissolution of the Union, but he also believed that given alleged innate racial differences and deeply held prejudices, emancipation would inevitably degrade the character of the Republic and unleash violent civil strife between blacks and whites. Jefferson thus advocated coupling emancipation with what he called colonization, or removal of the black population beyond the boundaries of the United States. His proposals won considerable support in the North, where racial prejudice was on the rise, but such schemes found little support among the majority of Southern slaveholders. When the last remaining founders died in the 1830s, they left behind an ambiguous legacy with regard to slavery. They had succeeded in gradually abolishing slavery in the northern states and northwestern territories, but permitted its rapid expansion in the south and southwest. Although they eventually enacted a federal ban on the importation of foreign slaves in 1808, the enslaved population continued to expand through natural reproduction, while the growing internal domestic slave trade led to an increase in the tragic breakup of enslaved families. So there's that. And another one, here's foundersandslavery.wordpress.com in 2015, March 04. And this is by some guy named C. Maher 2. I don't know who that is. I just found this article. And of course, always read what you on the internet with a grain of salt until you look up and find a little bit more strength to what they write about. Anyways, we quite read a lot there, but here's more. Thomas Jefferson. Okay, so here we go. Edited Samuel Adams, A Different View on Slavery. Quote, liberty will not long survive the total extension of morals, unquote, by Samuel Adams. Samuel Adams, some people could say he was a man who wore many hats during his lifetime. He played a major part, first in resisting Britain's Stamp Act and then organizing the Boston Tea Party. His duties ranged from American revolutionary to one of the nation's founding fathers. However, what brings us to this blog post today is to learn about how Samuel Adams' views on slavery led to one of the greatest accomplishments in America. Samuel Adams' view on slavery was quite different than many of the other founding fathers. Some of the founding fathers that we know include, but are not limited to, and we just talked about it, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. They all owned slaves. But then comes in my guy, Samuel Adams, did not own slaves, and neither did John Adams. To clear the air, Samuel Adams, John Adams were cousins. However, they were often referred to as the Adams brothers or the Adamses. Therefore, when I mention the Adams family, I'm not only talking about Samuel Adams' immediate family, but also his extended family. John Adams is included. The Adams family, from what I uncovered, was against slavery, or in better terms, strong anti-slave abolitionists. This was a very daring stance to take, as many other founding fathers did not agree with the family. Altogether, they stood by their beliefs and did not cave to the way Americans viewed black people during this time period. Owning, using, and abusing people for labor or slavery was second nature to many people and was not looked at in a negative way. Therefore, the way that the Adamses stood up for their belief was awe-inspiring to me. I want to take a moment to discuss the bolded quote on top of this post. It is said by Samuel Adams himself. He was a strong believer in his anti-slavery morals. It was his belief that every man, black or white, should be free from any higher powers on earth that were keeping them from being treated like human beings. The white people of this time period continued to take the liberties away from black people. They were not being morally correct. By taking the rights from slaves, they were following their immoral thoughts. Every person deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. No man is superior than the other. Therefore, no person should be locked down by an owner. Everyone should absolutely be seen as equals. The quote seen above allows for one to realize Samuel Adams' morals are much different than other founding fathers. Now, if that quote is not enough to make you believe that Samuel Adams had a strong disagreement with slavery, let's take a look at a different scenario involving Samuel Adams and an enslaved individual. After his marriage to Elizabeth Wells in 1764, the couple received a black worker named Surrey as a wedding gift. He was not going to allow Surrey to stay in the home because he did not believe in owning slaves. Instead, Adams freed Surrey and allowed her to stay with the family. On a little bit of note, there's more to it than that, but she was considered a hand in the house and extended family to all those who knew her. Finally, by 1782, the Massachusetts Supreme Court agreed with Samuel Adams and ruled slavery as unconstitutional. Following this decision, all Samuel Adams and his family were part of the accomplishments of abolishing slavery. By standing their ground and seeing the equal rights in all people, they were able to start a change in American ways of this time period. I'm even happier knowing that the horrific times of slavery that once were are no longer. And there's a list of sources in Google Books. And here's another one, Boston 1775.blogspot.com, 2009, in January, Samuel Adams and Slavery, the Private Man. And this is pretty much a quick one. Though Samuel Adams was cautious about pushing for the abolition of slavery. Thank you, Dan Biohacking Man. Though Samuel Adams was cautious about pushing for the abolition of slavery as a politician, as I discussed yesterday, he seems to have been firm in his private behavior. At least that's how his descendant and biographer William V. Wells described him. When Samuel remarried, his second wife Elizabeth was given an enslaved woman named Surrey. He reportedly insisted that a slave cannot live in my house. If she comes, she must be free. It's unclear whether the family formally freed Surrey at that time. They were apparently still writing out emancipation papers many years later. However, Adams's letters showed that he cared about Surrey as a member of his household. When he was in Philadelphia in 1775 and worried about his family getting out of British-occupied Boston, he remembered her in his letters to his wife. 17th of June. I wish to hear that my son and honest Surrey were released from their confinement in that town. 28th of June. Let me know where good old Surrey is. 30th July. I told Job and Surrey that I do not forget them. Some authors say Samuel Adams was one of the few American founders who never owned a slave, but he and his wife did hold title to Surrey for at least a while. In contrast, John and Abigail Adams and Alexander Hamilton never owned anyone else. The elder Benjamin Franklin and Dr. Benjamin Rush were active abolitionists, but even if Samuel Adams didn't push hard for the end of slavery in public, he seems to have practiced his values at home. Dan Biohacking Man says Samuel Adams was a good dude, and I totally agree. Alright, so that ends that. Look into a lot of founding fathers. You will, if you don't want to, that's on you, but also, a lot of the founding fathers will talk about natural law quite a lot. And they based their founding principles in the Constitution as a limited federal government because of natural law. And yeah, they had to kind of fight with a lot of people who didn't think the same. And that's why things got as bad as they did. It's not just about slavery. It was about a lot of things. It was about control. It was about they saw a bigger picture. They could be their own kings and queens of this potential new world. But there are some founding fathers that were like, nah. But look what we got here. We've got new kings and queens in this day and age, don't we? And let's not talk about that part. Not today. So Albert Einstein. And see, what I'm trying to do is trying to get people to realize that a lot of great people in the past, a lot of well-known people. You mention these names to anyone, well, at least somewhat intelligent person, they're gonna go, "Oh, I know who that person is. Yeah, of course, famous person, or yeah, he's the smartest man in the world, Albert Einstein." Or if you mention Samuel Adams, "Oh, the beer. Yeah, I like the beer." All right, or founding fathers. At least don't know who George Washington is, for God's sakes. Um, so look, a lot of these people talk about a lot of different things, not just the one or two things that the mass media tell you about. They go deep into a lot of things. When you go and read about Einstein, Albert Einstein talks about natural law. He talks about ether. And we're going to get more into that with ether and a whole bunch of other stuff when I start going deep into gosh, who was it that I even excuse me, Rudolf Steiner. So when we get into Rudolf Steiner, heck, I want to see if Rudolf Steiner ever talked with Albert Einstein. I doubt it, because I think they were quite a ways differently in time. Anyways, there's a quote by Albert Einstein about natural law. The scientist's religious feeling takes the form of a rapturous amazement at the harmony of natural law, which reveals an intelligence of such superiority that, compared with it, all the systematic thinking and acting of human beings is utterly insignificant reflection. This feeling is the guiding principle of his life and work, so far as he succeeds in keeping himself from the shackles of selfish desire. It is beyond question closely akin to that which has possessed the religious geniuses of all ages. And then Einstein, Ether and Relativity. He gave an address on the 5th of May 1920 at the University of Leiden. He chose as his topic Ether and the Theory of Relativity. He lectured in German, but we present an English translation below. The lecture was published by Methuen and Co. Limited, London in 1922. So you can give a look at this. So what I like to try to do is there's a lot of skeptics out there. There's a lot of people who like to say just some writing in the internet by some person. It's like, okay, just read the actual addresses, actual writings of a collection of Einstein collection essays that were written. Pardon me. Everything that has actual sources linked. Heck, I like to get to a direct source by going to congress.gov. Go to any .gov. You'll even get stuff that's on history in a .gov site, especially when it pertains to founding fathers and presidents. You can get a lot of everything from that stuff. So you can always search, you can always watch, you can always listen, and just empty your cup. Don't care what other people think of why you're watching it or what you're watching. Tell them, hey, you're free to think what you want to think, and I'm free to think and do what I want to do. So if you want to try and stop me, go ahead and stop me. If you want to come up with a certain term for me, go right on ahead. All I have to say is that you're ignorant as hell, and that's all I have to say. That'll probably make you angry, or most likely you probably know that you're ignorant and you're proud of it, and so there you go. You probably wouldn't even care. All right. Oh, oops, I kind of went away from DLive. Ryan Bannock. All right, so that was it. It's 46 minutes. Wow, it's kind of better than 3 hours. Don't worry, we'll get to those 3 hours or even longer sessions. I think I will try to keep it max at 3 hours. Break up even a lot of different shows where it's just someone else pretty much reading an entire book by a certain author. Or if it's someone giving a lecture for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, yeah, I'm going to air it. I think it has reasoning for it. So whenever anyone talks about, why are you going into natural law? Natural law has nothing to do with how things are now. It has everything to do with how things are now and how it's always been. And heck, if you don't think so, just look at the founding fathers. They base it off of natural law as well. And then when you talk about Albert Einstein, he doesn't shy away from natural law. He doesn't shy away from ether. All the things that happened back then and were talked about openly in scientific communities, they are shunned now. It's like talking to an SJW. A scientist these days is an SJW. Because you mention anything that's not part of materialistic science, they're going to be like, oh, pseudoscience, oh, crazy. He's probably some conspiracy nut, etc. It's like, dude, study your history. Not just that, study your history of scientists who everything that you work on now was found by them. They will say all the things that you do not like others saying now. And why is that? Because your mind is not open. It's closed. And why is it closed? Someone closed it for you and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a lot easier to see because you know what? If you open the door all the way, it's like I'm just flooded with all this information, all these variables. It's too overwhelming. So you know what? They close the door almost all the way, but just so that there's a little sliver, and you're like, oh, yeah, I can understand this. And that's why we're all specialists today in the working society of what we call jobs. All right, I'm done talking tonight. But thank you for joining me, all the people who've always kind of came in and listen to me or watch some of my stuff, or if it's new people. I open doors for pretty much anyone except for trolls who just want to take away others people's ability to speak or even take away people's platforms. And you know, I've kind of had it at times like I don't really maybe, you know, slaves, you know, if you've enslaved yourself or you're a slave to a system, I'm not sure if I will allow you. I will allow you at times, not all the time. This is my platform. This is my space. So if you really want to talk and get to the heart of things and be here all the time, show yourself, show your name, and I'm open to that. If you like to hide behind name or pseudonym, I'm like, yeah, you know, be brave enough. I mean, look, I'm doing it. There are a lot of other people doing it, and if we're doing it, you can do it too. All right, and I do it every night, or almost every night. I try to do it every night. It's hard sometimes. Pardon me. It is, because sometimes it's just not this that I'm doing. It's other things. Some things you know about, some things you don't know about. But I also like to hang with family. Family's number one. And that's all there is to it. Okay. Good night, everybody.